I wish they had kind of explored the nuance between having friends with benefits and having a boyfriend back home, because those are different things, and it's okay for you to be having sex while also looking for the one.
Hi, we are Julie and Kelly, and we are here to find love. We are two dating coaches recapping Clayton's Bachelor season 26, episode 3.
Okay, so in this week's episode, we had 3 dates as usual, 1 group date, a one-on-one date, and then another group date. So the first group date was pretty low drama. It was kind of like one of the few chill dates, like everyone on the date was being pretty chill with each other. They were forced into a truth circle, which it's always like a little weird because they're like, okay, now everyone get in a circle and like spill your trauma. And it's like, ooh. So Caitlin, Bristow led the truth circle, and they all kind of talked about their own personal just like challenges and the way people have judged them in the past type of thing. Clayton talked about dealing with body image issues, which was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to have, you know, a guy talk openly about body image issues. You know, male body image issues are actually quite common, but we don't tend to talk about them very much. We almost always talk about body image issues in regards to women. So it was really cool to see Clayton opening up and talking about that on a national platform. We moved into a one-on-one date with Sarah. Sarah was the first girl out of the limo. They seemed to have a good one-on-one date. They seemed to be connecting. I don't know what you think, Julie. I'm kind of like a little skeptical about them and their connection.
Like, I'm noticing a lot of his dates so far. It's not, like, I don't know if I feel totally convinced of their connection. But they both talk, like, on his dates with people, they'll talk about it as if there is something there. And I'm like, is it because you genuinely feel this special connection, or do you just like each other in a very like simple way, but you're making it seem more significant because you're on the show and you want to escalate it further? Like watching their dates, I just didn't know if I felt totally convinced of his connection of anyone, like a frontrunner way.
Yeah, actually, the only person who I did kind of feel like he is kind of into in a pretty genuine way is Rachel. Like, I felt like he seems to think, that she's super hot, which she is. So, I feel like
he has eyes. The man can see. Yeah,
the man can see. So
he has eyes.
Check. Okay. But yeah, anyways, so I agree. I think his connections with people seem to be, you know, they all seem kind of tenuous and kind of like surface level, but like they're kind of pretending that they're deeper than they are just because they're like on this show.
That's the vibe I'm getting. Yeah.
The vibe. But I mean, everyone, so on that first group date, everyone was really nice. On Sarah and Clayton's date, they were both very nice to each other and talked about nice things, and it was all nice. There was nothing really to report with that. But then the third group date, that's kind of where all the drama hit. We had first like a very strange like Baywatch themed beach date where all the girls were forced to basically like get in bathing suits and bend over, which was super weird. It was like very strange. And then we got a lot of the same Shanae and Elizabeth drama that we were dealing with last week. So just more of Shanae randomly targeting Elizabeth and making fun of her ADHD, and kind of now starting to put this like bullying twist on the conversation and saying that Elizabeth has been bullying her. There was something with shrimp. I don't really know what's going on.
I was
with
watching
shrimp.
it. I'm like, this is not a 10-minute segment, right?
I know.
Like, I understand, you know, like, haven't we all been in situations like that? But like, I don't know. I just didn't think it needed that much like airtime.
It was definitely, I don't know. I don't know what they were trying to show. Like, maybe they were just trying to show like Shanae's like weird version of reality where Elizabeth is being mean to her, but all I saw was Shanae eating a lot of shrimp, and that's fine. Eat that shrimp, girl. Like Shanae got so mad about Elizabeth not wanting her shrimp, but Shanae made her own little shrimp, and then she was like, Elizabeth was like ignoring my shrimp, and I was like, what is going on here?
I'm like, are we really hurting for content right now?
I know. I'm like, why am I talking about Trump right now? So, anyways, all of that kind of went down. There was just more Shanae and Elizabeth drama, and it seems like there's going to be more of it in the coming episode. So that's what happened in episode 3. I think one of the more interesting things that we can talk about, which I didn't mention in this recap, is we did see Cassidy go home. So Cassidy was kind of like an early villain of this season where she was very kind of assertive and aggressive with Clayton. A lot of the girls didn't like her, and she kind of has had a lot of camera interviews being very like arrogant and, you know, not super likable. And then in last week's episode, we learned via Sierra that Cassidy has some kind of friends with benefits type of situation back home, and it has come back to bite her because in this episode, Sierra told Clayton, and Clayton got real pissed and sent her home. So I thought it was a good opportunity for us to talk about the concept of friends with benefits and when it's a problem and when it's not.
I'm really glad that we're talking about this because I felt like the way the show handled it was not sex positive. It was a little bit like shamey.
I think that there have been situations in other seasons where contestants secretly like had a whole girlfriend back home, and that is obviously very different. It's very different if you like have a whole relationship back home and you're kind of on the show to like whatever, get clout and stuff, and then you intend to go back to your girlfriend. That does mess things up for the lead of the show if they like fall in love with you and you have a girlfriend back home. That does mess things up. But in this case, Cassidy did not have a boyfriend back home. Cassidy had a bone buddy, someone to, bone around with. And, it seemed there was a little bit of like they didn't share all the details here. It did they ended up making it sound like actually Cassidy did want to date this guy, this friends with benefits guy. And if that's the case, and she was trying to just date this other guy, then yeah, it's probably not cool for her to come on the show and use the show to like make the other guy jealous or use the show for clout and then intend to return to the guy. That's not cool. But if it actually is just a friends with benefits situation where she's just having sex with a guy and then is actually looking for a relationship at the same time, that seems perfectly fine. I mean, people can have, people have different people in their life for different reasons, and sometimes you might have someone who you just are friends with and like to have sex with, and at the same time you're looking to date and meet another person. And maybe you do, even if you are intending to be monogamous, like until you meet that partner that you want to be monogamous with, it's okay for you to be having sex with other people at the same time, as long as everyone kind of knows what's going on. And in my head, I'm like, if Cassidy was having sex with some guy back home and then she fell in love with Clayton and then she went home and was like, hey, like, by the way, I'm in love with Clayton, like our thing is over. Like, if it was really a friends with benefits situation, I don't think that guy would mind, because he'd be like, oh, okay, cool, like, good luck, have fun out there, like, and that just is fine. It's all fine. But they kind of made it seem like Cassidy was like secretly XYZ, what a slut, or what a two-faced whatever. And it was just, I don't know. I wish they had kind of explored the nuance between having friends with benefits and having a boyfriend back home, because those are different things, and it's okay for you to be having sex while also looking for the one,
I totally agree. I don't know why that was such a big storyline, because like it calls into question like how the show views and frames purity in terms of people that like, like these women are going on the show and they're like abstaining from relationships, they're abstaining from connections. And they're entering into like this Hunger Games environment of like all competing for the same man. Something about that just feels really hypocritical, that like he's allowed to have all of these connections of all of these different people, but they're not, and they can't explore anything. They have to be completely 100% dedicated to him before they know if they even like him or not, because a lot of people that go on the show, and it's being realistic, like they do it for a good time with the small possibility of falling for the lead. You don't know if you're gonna fall for the lead, so to like bank everything onto like an image of a person, to me that would be more harmful than going on the show and having a little FWB on the side and just
Yeah,
living your life, and it, like, that just feels like a
Totally.
healthier way to date to me. So, like,
Yeah.
didn't love how that was a storyline. Didn't love how, like, they didn't talk about it with Cassidy in terms of, like, how do you feel about your friends with benefits? Can we actually, like, understand what's happening?
Yeah.
Do you really want to be here for me? And just kind of, like, taking what she says at face value instead of judging her, which is what they did. And making her seem like, what you were saying, a slut for having sex before she met Clayton, who's dating 25 other people, you know?
Yeah. You know, I think maybe the real life takeaways, too, of this are, you know, obviously in real life, you're not being filmed as you're going about your dating life.
Of course,
but, you know, maybe the takeaway is making sure that you're being pretty candid with anyone that you're dating about how exclusive it is or isn't. Like, and, you know, Clayton seemed particularly upset that he didn't know about this guy that was back home for Cassidy, which, you know, I kind of get that the aspect of, like, trust and honesty, right? Especially when he asked her about it and she started by being like, no, I'm not seeing anyone, I haven't talked to anyone in years. And, like, that was clearly a lie. And so, like, that piece of it, like, I totally get why he was upset that she was, like, lying about it, and what he said about, like, it was, like, just a trust breach. Because once you see someone's kind of capacity to, like, just blatantly lie to your face, that does feel pretty destabilizing. But it's not that it was the friends with benefits that made it bad as much as it was the fact that she was, like, lying about it. So, you know, I think in real life, dude, have sex with who you want. And, you know, if you're having sex with someone while also trying to look for, you know, a monogamous partner, probably is good to be honest with anyone that you're dating. Like, hey, like, yeah, you know, I'm like, this is fun getting to know you, and, you know, I'm still out on the town, you know, whatever.
I'm still in the streets. And it's like making sure the commitment is there of that person before you have that conversation of, like, exclusivity or where you stand with the person. Right. I think Cassidy and Clayton were arriving to that, because I do think if she had told him beforehand, before their connection was established, it would seem like there was an ulterior motive in, like, making him jealous or calling to attention that maybe doesn't really matter if the chemistry's not there. So I think there's, like, a right timing to it.
I think there are ways that you could, like, say it casual in real life. Like, on this show, it's like there's not really an easy way to do it. So, like, you know, in real life, I think it's pretty easy to be like, yeah, you know, I, like, ask, like, so, you know, how's the dating world been for you? And then they say whatever, and you say, yeah, like, I've, you know, have, like, a roster of guys that I hang out with, but I'm, like, really liking what's going on with you, and, like, you know, just keep that conversation open. And, like, you can say that in a way that, like, is like, hey, I'm being honest with you that, like, there are other guys that I'm also kind of hanging out with right now, while also not being like, I'm in love with you, or being like, I don't care about you and I'm trying to make you jealous. It's just, like, I think that, you know, in real life, you can do that. On the show, kind of makes it, they do kind of construct it in a way that it's like, it's weird because they're like, everyone needs to be 100,000% monogamous while dating 30 women. And, like, it's like a very weird, like, they're trying to be both ultra traditional and monogamous about the way everyone pursues relationships, but also at the same time, the construct of the show is, like, dating 30 people at the same time. So it's like it's a very weird position that they're put on in the show in comparison to real life, where I think there are more opportunities. Like, it is a lot easier to be truthful as soon as you, like, feel like, oh, hey, I've, like, gone on a couple dates with this guy, I like him, and he should kind of know, like, where I'm at, that I've been hanging out with some other people, and see what he thinks, or see, you know, if we want to transition to being, like, exclusive for now while we figure things out, right? You know, you can have that conversation with someone. And I don't think it has to be awkward, and I don't think it even has to be, like, dramatic. I think it's just honest. I mean, most people who are dating or, like, on a dating app or anything like that, they are talking to multiple people. You just kind of know that, like, par for the course. It's kind of like, if you're on a dating app, you're probably having a conversation with, like, 4 different people at the same time, and, like, you know, maybe you're actually hanging out with 2 of them, and then you're also talking to more people in the app, and, like, you know, like, that's just kind of, like, how it works. And so, you know, people should just talk about that, and then it doesn't have to be this like weird like, oh, yes, she's having sex. Like,
it's like, yeah, I've been having a lot of sex, actually. I think these kind of relationships have to be co-created. It's not something that you can just kind of automatically assume that, like, they're in the exact same place that you're at. It's good to have the conversation and openly, like,
totally
air it out. Like, this is where I'm at. This is where you're at. Okay, what do we want to co-create together, if anything?
I love that. Yeah.
Right? And if there's nothing, like, and then that's when you can see, like, are we on the same page about things? Do our values align? That's kind of when the conversation gets going to form and build a relationship. And you should always feel safe with the person that you're talking to be able to speak openly about that. And I think if they take it super negatively or they make value judgments on you, that says a lot about their systems and the way that they view relationships and the people that they're in partnership with. So that's one good thing to pay attention to.
Yeah, I love that. Love that a lot.
So the next thing that we will talk about that was a pretty big theme was Clayton in the truth circle, when he was talking about his body image and how he, you know, would compare himself to his friends and he didn't feel good about his body and he would lose a lot of weight. Just kind of, it sounded like he was going through like a little bit of body dysmorphia and just a lot of like anxiety about how he was being perceived by the world and what it meant about like his athleticism and his masculinity.
I looked up stats on this, and it is like something like 1 in 3 men deal with some kind of like body dissatisfaction, and there are actually some studies that show that it's like up to like 90% of men have dealt with body dissatisfaction in their lives, which could be anything from like, you know, the kind of like fat phobia type of thing that Clayton was describing, of like looking at his stomach and like being upset about how much fat there was or wasn't there. And then it's very common for men to also deal with things like muscularity insecurities about how muscular they are or aren't, how tall they are or aren't, or also like how like penis size type things. There's like all kinds of like different forms of body dissatisfaction or body dysmorphia or body just like insecurities that men have, but kind of aren't allowed to talk about, right? Kind of aren't allowed to voice that. Whereas I think it's pretty common now for people to talk about the unrealistic expectations placed on women and women's bodies, and women are much more able to talk about how much insecurity they deal with because of living in a society that puts so much attention on women's bodies. Like, women are just much more able to talk about that in current, like just the current cultural moment in comparison to men. There just really hasn't been that platform for men to be able to do that, or that kind of space and acceptance for men to be able to do that. So I really, really appreciate that Clayton just like took a step forward to be able to just say that out loud. And I think it was like Susie or one of the girls was like, oh my God, I've never heard a guy talk about body image issues, and like I've never had a partner who I could relate, like who I could talk about my body image issues with and like feel like he could relate to me. And it's like, that is probably not because it's uncommon. I mean, statistically speaking, it's very common for men to have body image issues. It's just more so because men aren't talking about it, right? In fact, probably a lot of men can relate to, you know, women talking about this feeling of insecurity related to their bodies and just like haven't felt safe or able to talk about it out loud. So really, like, kudos to Clayton for kind of opening that conversation and bringing that to light, because men deal with body image issues too, and we have unrealistic expectations of what men are supposed to look like also, and they impact men and the way they feel about themselves too. I do think it is probably easier to talk about your body insecurities when you sort of know that people will respond with, no, but you're so beautiful, or oh, no, but you are, because I guess what I mean is that it's probably really different for someone like Clayton, who's in this position where he's like kind of being showered with attention and affection, and everyone's talking about how hot he is, and like he is hot, and he does look, it's like very evident that he looks great, and he looks like the apex of a man, as America kind of stereotypically envisions. And I think it's probably easier for him to be able to talk about body image issues now, where it seems like, you know, his, like he is meeting the standard maybe in a way that he felt like he wasn't in the past, versus someone who doesn't fit into America's ideal for what their body should look like. To be able to talk about that is probably pretty different, right? For a
good point.
Guy or person who is fat or not muscular or whatever, short or whatever the thing is that people, you know, say is not attractive in a man or in a woman or in a person. Being in a body that, you know, our culture doesn't accept, and being able to talk about body image issues is probably a lot harder than being in a body that, you know, your culture does want you to look like.
During the beach day, I was thinking about like, wow, these women are so beautiful. I don't really see all body types being celebrated here though. Everyone is cis, thin, like they really like, do fit a really gorgeous, particular like, beauty standard. Yeah, and the same thing of Clayton too. He said that he transformed his biggest weakness into like now his biggest strength.
You know, in general, like it's just always just like a bunch of size 0 to size maximum size like 4 women like on this show, and it's like I would like to see people, contestants of all sorts with all sorts of bodies, you know, represented on this show. And I think that would probably help people have less body dysmorphia and have less like body, you know, self-hate if they saw more people like them on TV that, you know, look like them. The vast majority of people in this country do not look like the contestants of The Bachelor. I mean, I think that neatly brings into the last thing that we're going to touch on in this recap, which is just everything that's going on with Shanae and Elizabeth. One person, Brianna of Brianna's Bachelor Breakdown, commented last week that what she was picking up from this season is just like it's getting more common for people to come on the show and talk about their like strategy and talk about like, you know, how much they know about The Bachelor, and like just kind of like be breaking the fourth wall, like Cassidy talking about like, what are we going to do for our exit interviews? Like, what do you want to say in your exit interview and that kind of thing. And, you know, Shanae going in front of the camera and being like, oh my God, like I did so good in that scene with Clayton. Don't you think? Like he totally believed me. And like, just like, just like really explaining their strategy to the camera. And it just feels like more and more people are just talking about like very openly about like, hey, I'm on a TV show and I've kind of planned what I wanted to do on this TV show. And like the show is also kind of leading into that as like a narrative of like, look at these manipulative like people who are here for the wrong reasons and just here for clout. Like the producers are kind of like, let's highlight these types of stories of people who are being overly strategic and like who are here for the wrong reasons. And like, I'm just a little bit like bored of it. I don't know. Like same. It's kind of like, obviously people are gonna go on TV because it's cool to be on TV and you can get a lot of things from being on TV. And like, yeah, your life is gonna change forever from being on TV. And you know, there's no way around that. Like not a single one of the people on this show went on TV without partially going on TV because they wanted to be on TV. Like that's the truth. I'm sure a lot of them also were excited about the idea of maybe dating Clayton, but I'm sure 100% of them were excited about the idea of being on TV and what they could get from that. And so continuing to make it a storyline, I'm just like, guys, like, let's just be real here.
I mean, I'd be curious to see what you guys think as you're watching the show. Like, how do you feel about the beginning of Clayton's season and how they're framing it right now? Because I think that with Clayton being such a new lead, they had a really good opportunity to kind of like tool around and play around with the format of the show. Like they really could have elevated his season to be a traditional love story and get people to fall back in love with like what the Bachelor franchise used to be, which was this person looking for dating, this commitment with, you know, a group of people that were hand selected for them. It seems that like they don't really know what they want, and it makes the beginning of the show, I think, a little bit difficult to watch. It does kind of suck that next episode is a continuation of the Shanae Elizabeth thing, because that's just like, I don't like to watch it. I just don't care about it.
Yeah, or like, we want the love stories, please. That's why we're all here.
Give us the love stories. I know, I'm waiting for it, and I'm just like not being convinced about any of them really. Before we wrap up the recap, do you have any frontrunners from what you're seeing so far of his connection?
Honestly, just so Rachel, I think, is a front runner. I do think Teddy, who didn't get a lot of screen time in this episode, Eliza is like super cute and beautiful. I can't tell if he has an authentic connection with her, but I do think that she's getting some good screen time. You know, I don't think that she'll end up with Clayton, but I really would like to see more of her on this franchise. Those are the only people that really stuck out to me, at least from this week's episode. What about you?
I think Gabby, for me.
Oh, right, Gabby. Yeah, she was so cute in this episode.
She's so cute, and not only that, I just think that, like, she is the only one that seems genuine about it. Like, it seems like she's straddling both of those things very well. She's, like, aware that she's on a TV show, but she's also, like, I happen to have a really nice connection with the lead. And I happen to like him, and it's fun to make out with him, and it's fun to fall into this thing with him. And it seems like she, out of all of the connections, is present to him. Not in a let's get married way, just in a I'm attracted to you, let's date kind of
have
way.
Fun. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's like exactly the vibe that you want when you're getting to know someone. It's really fun. It's very lighthearted. It's more like, let's see if we're compatible before I build my life around you. You know, I think that just elevates back Gabby. I'm just like, damn, she really knows how to like be present to the experience of dating, and I think that makes her a really good dater.
Yeah, love it. Completely agree. I really will be excited to see more of Gabby. That's a good one. Let us know what you all think down below. Who are frontrunners that are standing out for you? Contestants that you're really enjoying seeing? Contestants that you think have an actual authentic relationship to Clayton and connection with Clayton? Leave them down below so we can make sure that we're keeping our eye on them too. So the last thing that we wanted to mention is that for next week's Bachelor recap, we will be having a special guest on our show. Brianna from Brianna's Bachelor Breakdown will be joining us in this conversation. Brianna is awesome. She always has such good points and ideas to contribute to the conversation. So we are so excited to have her on our show next week. And we'll have a bit of a three-way type conversation. That sounded more
we will have a three-way, yes.
It'll be great. Tune in.
Subscribe for more.
Next week, we will be back with another Bachelor recap like we are every week. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and we will talk to you then.
Bye.